Canadian troops are facing one of the most difficult and tumultuous times in our country's history. From the external threats posed by Russia, China, and Iran, to the internal struggles for funding, personnel, equipment, and questions about Canada's basic ability to even defend itself. At the helm during this challenging time is a historic commander, General Jennie Carignan. She is the first woman to command the Canadian Armed Forces, and in fact, she was the first woman to command a Canadian combat arms unit. She is taking command and leading us through this difficult time at the time that some allies are also questioning the role of women in combat and looking to roll back the clock on that. General Carignan, thank you so much for sitting down with us.
Thanks for having me, Mercedes. It's a pleasure.
We're here at the Security Forum, and we're hearing so much about the threats that are escalating around the world to defense and security. You've now been in the job of Chief of the Defense Staff for a few months and had a chance to get all the briefings and intelligence. What keeps you up at night? What worries you as the big threats to Canada?
So it is really a multi-dimensional, multi-domain threat. It doesn't come from just one area. It's from very low level, low threshold, all the way up to big technology that can now reach our continent, whether it's ballistic missiles or other means of delivery. That is what is increasingly concerning. Is the multidisciplinary aspect of those threats. Like, it's from disinformation to hybrid, sabotage, exploiting the vulnerabilities of our democracies, but also technology now that travels faster and then travels longer as well, and then we need to be ready for that.
So we're no longer protected by the geography that once was perhaps so advantageous to us.
Absolutely, and I would say that our priority number one is really the defense of Canada and continental defense, and that implies our responsibility for the Arctic, so that we can actually deter and then maintain our sovereignty. That's really what is the priority number one.
What kind of presence are you seeing in the Arctic from countries like Russia and China?
So this is what has been developing over the recent years, is that this collaboration between China and Russia in the Arctic. So we used to see presence from both of them, but now they come in, whether it's through joint exercises or joint patrols even, whether it's via maritime ways or in the air as well. We also see a higher level of aggressivity in terms of behavior for intercepts in the air, and a lot more presence from in the maritime domain. So, for example, research vessels now are constantly navigating in the Arctic waters. And they are dual use. We know they are not just researching, but they are actually gathering intelligence.
I know we don't have the ability to defend the Arctic right now. It's something the government's been talking about a lot. I know it's up to politicians to make the decisions on where the money goes, but they come to you for advice. What advice do you have for the capabilities that we need to invest in to be able to defend the Arctic?
So we need to invest in detection. So in order to be able to defeat any threats that come to us, we need to be properly enabled by detection systems. So we have technical solutions at the moment that we are exploring with a few solutions, and then working with our American partners as well in acquiring those systems earlier, so that they can actually bridge the gaps that we have. Don't get me wrong, we have detection capacity at the moment, but with the advancement of technology, we need to make sure that we're ready for the future.
Are we moving fast enough? I saw an article the other day that the radar system that would detect things potentially like those hypersonic missiles that the Russians have been using will be ready in 2033. seems a long way away.
There is a lot of more work to do in terms of analysis. We are looking at a complement of various other technologies to do this. So we have a few options right now that we are looking at onboarding in the short term in order to be building on all of these complementary systems.
What's your number one priority right now for the Canadian military?
It is really personnel. Going back to our full strength is priority number one in terms of addressing this in the short term. So within the next 5 years, we have already this fall made a lot of modifications to our processes, to our standards, to streamline the recruiting process. So the guideline that I've given is that I want to reach our target this year, and if we can, plus 10%. So if we get close to the end of the year and we are at target, we're not going to stop. If we can go above, we will. And then, building on that success, we also need to design all the training capacity to onboard new people. So this is really what is taking a lot of my time at the moment.
The shortfall in people is one of the biggest limiting factors in what we're able to do, because you could theoretically buy the equipment very quickly, but you need people to staff it. And you have the Americans here being very clear that they want Canada to spend more on defense and to do more faster. Are you worried about our relationship with the United States? And I'm thinking in particular with NORAD, if the Americans, and in particular the Trump administration, say, look, you're not stepping up.
So our relationship with the United States is extremely important. That collaboration and partnership on the NORAD aspect is extremely important. And I am very seized with our responsibilities in maintaining our own sovereignty, especially via the Arctic. So yes, of course, this is a key priority and definitely where we concentrate a lot of our efforts.
Donald Trump, president-elect, says that he's going to finish the war in Ukraine, make decisions. A lot of concerns here that could see the ceding of Ukrainian territory. What do you expect that means potentially for Canadian troops in Latvia who have been there shoring up the front, and the potential effect on NATO?
So I think for us what's important is to keep moving forward in terms of establishing a strong defense on the eastern front of NATO, which is what we are doing in Latvia. So of course, regardless of what's going to happen post-conflict with Ukraine, is not going to modify what we need to do in Latvia in terms of reinforcing that flank. And again, we will need to look at our own involvement and contribution to Ukraine's stability going into the future. So, of course, we're going to be watching and monitoring and adapting with the information that will be coming, that's for sure.
I have to ask you about the comments of the potential future Secretary of Defense in the United States. Of course, he has to be confirmed, but President Trump's nominee says he does not believe that women belong in combat roles. You are a combat engineer. You have been in a combat role. You are Canada's first woman to be Chief of the Defense Staff. How do you deal potentially with a Secretary of Defense who thinks that you shouldn't have ever had those jobs?
Well, I think that's for them to worry about. That really is not my fight. So as far as I'm concerned, we have seized the opportunity to open a larger roles for women within the military. I think we are in a very good place with great people coming in behind, and we have more women joining the forces as well. So that's really that's where my realm of influence lies. And again, not for me to manage the posture in the United States.
What's your message to people who think women don't belong in combat?
Well, what I would say is that you need to basically serve and understand what the roles are, and then once you've been through and then you understand what the military is about and the type of people that we need, I think they should be joining the forces and understand what it is really about.
General Carignan, thank you for your service, and thank you for taking the time to sit down with us today.
Thank you very much, Mercedes.